Hi, everyone.
Hey, dudes. Too bad we weren't recording for the last 5 minutes because it was way more interesting, the stuff we were talking about offline. Some real hot goss. Hot goss. If this was like a hot mic, that would be there'd be some big news flowing out of muscle science this week. But anyway, someday
don't give away the secret.
Yeah, I won't. Okay. How are you?
Oh my God, you're drinking water out of a glass.
Mm-hmm. Cheers. It's the only one that was up here. Okay.
It looks like one of those what are they? Like the whiskey glasses or something?
Yeah, it is definitely for alcohol. It's not for water. This fits like 3 ounces of liquid, which is very
little do we know that it's vodka.
I mean, it's a clear liquid, so yeah, it could be anything. You guys don't know. You don't know. We'll see. It is a little early in the day.
I still got my wide mouth mason jar. It is 8:00 in the morning, my time.
Yeah, I made you get
Ashley's
up early.
Trying to get me to.
I don't think I know about this, but are you like a early sleeper, early riser generally, or are you like a night owl? What's your deal?
Yeah, I'm definitely early. Well, I feel like I go through phases, but the last 2 months, I've been super early, like 4:30 in the morning. Some days I try to like push it to 5:30 because like whatever. It gets a little bit too early and it doesn't get light here right now until like 7. But then that causes me to go to sleep earlier. And then there's sometimes when like if I get a good show on Netflix or something and I'm like really into it, and then I like, I stay up a little bit later, and then I obviously wake up a little bit later, and then I get into like this cycle for like a few weeks until the show's over. That I'm like, but I hate that. And I don't like to do that. I like to be up. My brain is like on fire in the morning.
So what time are you going to bed if you're waking up at 4:30?
So like last night I went to bed at like 9.
Like fell asleep at 9:00.
Yeah. Like amazing. I was like falling asleep on the couch at like probably 8:50, and I was like, I'm just going to bed. But it's probably more regular between like 10 and then wake up at like 5:30-ish.
Okay.
How about you? Are you early?
I'm definitely more of a night owl. It goes with the whole like I don't know, tortured writer thing, which is what I was hoping to be in my life before I became a fitness person instead. But I like my brain is on fire between like, and this is also different before I had a kid. Like when I had things when my life wasn't so exhausting, I had the most energy to like be creative or work or whatever between like 8 and midnight. And I would go to bed. I'd fall asleep at like midnight and wake up at like 7:30 maybe. Now that I have a kid, I still stay up until midnight. I'm just too tired to do anything productive. So that's what's going on in my life. But what do you have a Netflix show that is like you're feeling right now? Because I just finished watching one that was kind of good. Well, I guess I shouldn't tell you because then you're gonna stay up late and be sad about it.
Oh my God. Well, I kind of want to know because I'm rewatching Grey's Anatomy for the 5th time.
Okay, I've got something better for you. I actually could never get into Grey's Anatomy. I can never get into like the real soapy drama stuff. I couldn't do it. But there's a show. It's on Netflix. It's called The Sinner. Have you heard about this? Okay,
no,
so it's basically
I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, it's a dude who's like a detective, and every season is like a different story arc, but it's the same detective dude who's like this, tortured soul, whatever. He's got his own problems. But every season, it's a different story. And they're always like, it's, just like a mystery, like who killed the person or why did this person do that or whatever. And over the arc, it tells this crazy story. And every season is like interesting and like different, and they're pretty intense. Like maybe you might not want to watch it right before bed. I don't know. I really liked it. But the most recent season that just came on, the reason why I was especially interested is because I noticed immediately that it was filmed in Nova Scotia, which is where I'm from. Actually, a lot of movies and a lot of places that are meant to look like coastal or look like Maine or like New England, they're all filmed in Nova Scotia because it looks exactly the same, but it's cheaper. And it's beautiful. But the whole time I'm watching the show, I'm like, this is like where I grew up. Like it's pretty cool. So but anyway, it's have you ever watched Power on Star? It's on Stars, but they put it on Hulu, I believe. If you like have heard of it, I have not watched it.
You should watch it. So it's based in Manhattan. So I was like, remind me of that because like I always get the feels, and I'm like, oh, this Manhattan, like Law and Order SVU. I'm like, oh my God, that's my block. But yeah, Power's good. It's actually 50 Cent's in it. It's about drugs and gangster shit, but I
So
love
your
it.
upbringing, basically.
Yeah, basically. But it's good. You should watch it. There's a few seasons, and it's like the music is good. I love the intro music. I was like, oh, this gives me, like, when we were thinking about intro music for the Muscle Science for Women podcast, I was like, I want this like intro music from The Power. I don't know why, but it was just
I'm
so
sure that would be
badass.
cheap and easy to get.
Yeah, right. Anyways, so
that
what
reminds
are we
me, though,
talking about today?
before we get into the 2 quick questions, we still have not come up with a Muscle Science for Women playlist. So you and I need to get on top of that, because I did.
Right,
although it's funny because I reached out on Instagram to folks and I was like, hey, what's your like song? And I got like a very eclectic answers, like lots of different ideas. So we may have to come up with like a rock one, a hip hop one, like I don't know, old school. Anyway, but we got to do it because I think that would be fun.
Down for it, for sure.
All right, let's dig into some questions, shall we?
Yeah, and then we'll do updates at the end because we did say that we were going to do updates. Like,
we'll do updates at the beginning because Alex told me, he's like, don't do updates at the end when everyone's tired. Like, talk about your life. But I thought we were talking about our life. Like, I don't have.
Okay, yeah. So we did an update. I just want to say that I convinced you to buy the Ninja Creamy, and we're going to do a whole episode on that in the future. So stay tuned.
We need to basically change our brand to like girls making ice cream, because the amount of interest that I got when I posted about it, people were like, what is it? What is it? Like, how do you make this ice cream? I'm like, oh my God, can you guys care more about like the work that we do rather than this effing ice cream? But I get it. It's good. It's very good. But I don't think we should talk about it until we have secured some support from various people, because listen, we don't have to talk about and endlessly promote people's products for free. Okay. All right. They can support us too. So
Ninja, are you listening?
Yeah, Ninja. Yeah. Ice cream. Where's Big Ice Cream? Why aren't they throwing us a bone? Well, I guess because we're making stuff without buying their products, because it really is. But like, it's amazing. Like the ice cream I made in your least favorite flavor, like the texture is insane. When you think that there's no added, like, it's low fat, if that's what you're into. Yeah, there's like nothing in it, and it tastes like ice cream. It's insane. But anyway, yes, we'll do a whole separate episode about that. Okay, so we've got some pretty typical like training questions, which is good. Some very straightforward training questions that I think would be good. And I also want to say, because one of these questions came from a male coach who I know coaches female clients, and it warms my heart. The last few weeks, I've noticed comments on our YouTube. I've noticed comments on our posting, almost like more male coaches than women. And I'm like, I'm so glad that so many of you decided to like come along with us. Like, our title has women in the title of the podcast, and we still have male fitness professionals and enthusiasts listening. And that makes me very happy, because just because we are focusing on women's strength training or women's, health issues doesn't mean that men can't benefit from it, learn from it, help their community. They should be as interested in our health and fitness as we have been kind of forced to be interested in theirs forever, because that's the only information that was out there. So I appreciate all the shout out to the dudes still listening and learning from us. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And that also, I mean, it kind of makes sense too. Like, if I were a dude and I was training women, I'd want to like listen to a podcast that was all about that.
Correct.
So that makes sense. So if you are a dude and you're listening and you haven't left a review yet, let us know that you're a dude and what you like about the podcast, and anything else that you want us to talk about, because
it's true, actually, like having an outside perspective. And that's what these questions are too. Like having guys be like, I coach women, and these are some things I had never really thought about before. I have some questions that would be very beneficial for us. So please do that. Okay.
Word up.
First question. How important is a dynamic warm-up for women's strength training? Go for it.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think my opinion on this has evolved over the years, as it should, as we learn more, as we try out different things. I personally think that it's not as important as some people probably put it out to be. I think that, at least for me, I used to spend a lot of time I used to spend maybe 10 to 20 minutes before I even got into my workout, doing like dynamic stuff, doing mobility work, going through the motions, band work, stuff like that. And I've actually dropped that down a lot over the past probably year or so. But I do think that, and the reason for that is because I actually wanted to just spend a little bit more time actually, going through the movement that I was going to train that day. Right. And people kind of talk about like, oh, you need to activate your glutes before you can, go do a barbell hip thrust. You need to do all the booty band stuff and all of that. And like, do some dynamic stretching and dynamic stuff. But I think that it could be for the realistic person who's going to the gym for like an hour. I'm like, I would much rather you spend that hour that you have actually lifting heavy shit and like, spending time towards that. If you're someone who has extra time and you're like, I can go to the gym for 2 hours, an hour and a half, whatever, and you want to spend that time doing it, I think there's no problem with that. But I would say like prioritize what is like important for you and what you're really trying to do. Right. I do, however, think there is definitely merit to, the first 5 minutes, like getting your heart rate up, right? Getting like blood flowing. I think that's really important versus going to the gym and just like putting a heavy ass barbell on your back and squatting or whatever you're doing. Definitely need to get your heart rate up, get things moving a little bit, obviously to prevent just injury in general. But I think that in my personal opinion, I think that, one, it just comes down to you and what you feel best with, because there are people who do feel really good if they do a little dynamic warm up before, which is amazing. Like do that if that's what, feels good for you. But I don't think, if you're someone who, again, only has 45 minutes an hour, I would probably not quote unquote waste that time. And I would put it towards something that's going to be really a little bit more beneficial, which would just be like, okay, if you're about to barbell squat, we love barbell squats on this show, apparently, or whatever you're doing, right? Deadlifting. Yeah. Just go get the bar, do some reps with the bar, work your way up in weight. And that shouldn't take more than like 5 minutes unless you are someone who is lifting 400 pounds. And, the heavier the weight gets, probably the more warm up sets you need to really kind of, make sure that you're not getting injured in that. But yeah, it all depends, in my opinion, where you're at and what you have time for and what's most beneficial for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I guess a couple clarifying things here. So you're kind of saying like a warm up is still important, but it doesn't have to be like a 10, 15 minute generic dynamic workout. It probably makes more sense for most people to have it be a bit more focused and targeted on just getting warmed up and getting your heart rate up, but actually warming up the movements you're going to do that day. Right. Cause I do think a lot of people are like, okay, well, I've got my like 15-minute like dynamic stretching thing that I do, whatever. And maybe that isn't as crucial as people think. So I agree with what you're saying there. I do think it's also, of course, dependent on, sometimes as people maybe are rehabbing an injury or if they're older and creakier and just need more time, right? Yeah. That's going to be it. And I think the other thing to, of course, confirm here, because this person is asking like dynamic warm up, is it important for women's strength training? It's the same for women and men. Like we don't need more or less warm up across the board, like it's important for human beings to warm up their nervous system and their bodies before they do tough workouts that could injure themselves or make you super sore or whatever. Right. So yeah, I think like that makes sense, right? In general, like you should be going in there and warming up your body and your mind for the work that you're about to do. And especially if your time is limited, you should be focused on warming up the specific movements and muscles and body parts that you're going to be using instead of just like, let's go over in the corner and like swing my arms around for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. I completely agree. And there also is like merit to, some people say doing some explosive stuff or like if you're about to, I'm just going to use squat again, because I know you love those squats. Like if you're about to barbell back squat, it might, maybe get a little bit explosive and do some box jumps, right? Just to kind of get that, just get explosive with it, get your nervous system kind of primed. I think those things are absolutely fine, but going and doing like 50 box jumps before you go to squat, like it just, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah.
It's funny you keep chirping me about the squats, but I for the first time in a very long time, I have actually, like, for the last month or so, been focusing on lower body almost exclusively, which is normally the opposite of what I do. Like, normally I'm just going in there doing like pull-ups, spies, and tries.
Yeah.
Like that's the life that I live. But I've kind of injured my shoulder. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on there. So I've just been like pivoting and doing lower body stuff. And the last couple times that I've been in the gym, I have done all kinds of variations of squats. I've been doing like goblet squats. I did my heel raised thing
Hell
that you love.
yeah.
I've been doing all kinds of stuff, and they're all good. They're all great. I'm still not like in a hack squat machine because, like, no, thank you.
Do you have one of those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you just like get in it and just like,
I have before, dude. I've been working out for like 20 years. I know what a hack squat machine is. It's just not for me. Okay. However, I do want to use that machine that you have at one of your gyms, the one that's like, it's like you're going in like this curved arc thing when you're squatting. That looks fun.
So I don't have that at my gym. Unfortunately, that was when I was at N1 in Boulder. The pendulum squat is my favorite thing. And I actually probably should find a gym that has it because they're becoming more popular. That thing is amazing. That's like, in my opinion, better than the hack squat. And just the arcing motion itself is just like fantastic.
It's interesting.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It looks
like when I get a home gym, I'm getting a pendulum squat. I don't care what anybody says.
It's no one wants to stop you, Rachel. We all are very supportive of you and your pendulum squat. But all that to say, it's been fun for me to kind of, instead of just like bitching and moaning about what I can't do, I'm like, well, let's go like lift some heavier weights. And like, it's good, as we all know, metabolically, it's good to work these big muscles and like do some functional stuff. And I'm doing all kinds of fun single leg stuff and just really building my strength back up. And it's really fun. And, it's all great, but nothing feels more badass and fun than lifting a heavy barbell. My opinion only. Continuing on. But this actually is a good segue to another question that I think is kind of interesting. And I don't know if I think this came to you and you sent it to me and I was like, yes, I have opinions about this. Let's talk about it. Okay. One of our listeners was talking about like, do you guys have this experience or do you notice that sometimes trainers will sort of program like overly complex, interesting, weird, dynamic movements and workouts for people that seem to be sort of more like fluff than substance. And they're kind of using it like examples of like, explosive push-ups and burpees combined with this and that. And like all kinds of just sort of like fancy, almost show-offy movements. And the person asking the question, I don't have the exact question in front of me, but she was kind of like, what's up with that? Is that good? Like, why are people doing that? Is that beneficial? Yeah. So do you want to start in on that and I can follow up?
Well, you start because I started last time.
Okay.
Unless you want me to start. I'm just trying to share the love,
Okay, great. Well, I mean, again, it completely sort of depends on the individual, right? Because we don't know if this person being trained is being trained for an explosive sport, or if they have specifically said, look, I just want you to program dynamic HIIT workouts for me. And the coach said, fine. Like, we don't know. There's always so many like factors that we don't know. Right. But I will say that I have had many moments in my like Globo gyms looking at certain trainers who I roll my eyes because I feel like they are programming for the client's ego and to make the client feel like they're doing something rather than getting them actual strength and results. And I've seen lots of examples of people practicing like these weirdly complex, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of good examples, but like
doing jump squats in between back squats, like.
Yeah. And even like, like getting people to do like uneven asymmetrical push-ups before it's obviously apparent that they cannot do a proper full push-up yet.
Yeah.
Or like, even the CrossFitters hate me for this, but like focusing on women doing like 20 kipping pull-ups when they can't do a full one. Like, that's a skill. It's a skill for a specific thing. In this case, a gymnastic movement for, I don't know, CrossFit competition. But like, is that training their overall strength? No, it's training their ego because they can say, I can do 20 kipping pull-ups. Like, cool. Okay. But like, can you kip yourself up off a cliff if you fall over one? No, you got to be able to pull yourself up with your strength. Right. So,
oh my God.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No, but I'm just dying because that is something you would totally say. And it's just like so funny.
But it's true. It's true. And so again, and I feel strongly about, and I've said to people too, like we have to get rid of our ego a little bit. I would rather see my client do 2 perfect, controlled, strong push-ups than 30 weird, fancy ones on a Bosu ball or something where they are doing like a quarter range of motion. Like, what are we doing this for? Are we doing this to take a picture or like a video on Instagram of me doing some weird shit? Or are we trying to get stronger and like learn functional movement patterns, you know? So again, we don't know, we can't judge everybody doing this stuff. Like some of these people are athletes training for specific things or have specific goals, whatever. But generally, like every single fitness or trainer or coach that I know and respect that I follow, they all focus on foundations. And even if they're working with elite athletes, like the foundational strength and functional movement patterns are always going to be more beneficial and better and a smarter use of your time than weird dynamic stuff that just might make you feel kind of like a badass for a minute.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it comes back to, first of all, you know, just kind of like the old school thought that like you need to be sweating, your heart rate needs to be up the entire time. You need to like feel like you're actually, you know, working and the only way to do that is if you are sweating and you're like just jumping around and all this stuff. Right. And I think that that's a huge mistake because, and burning calories, right? This is the thing, like when you're sweating, when you're doing these things, you're feeling, and this is, you know, what kind of drew me to CrossFit was like, you know, back in the day, I was like, damn, like I'm dead on the floor after this. Like I feel good. I'm making a sweat angel, all this stuff. I've got a really hard workout. But the reality is that is counterproductive if your goal is to build muscle, right? And put on muscle, which in turn is going to actually change the shape of your body, right? We talk about this all the time. You want to get toned, you want to get whatever. You need to put on muscle to change the actual shape of your body. Because if you're doing
CrossFitters fight you on that, because look at these elite CrossFitters who are doing all this crazy shit and they're hugely muscled.
Yeah.
But those are specific. Yeah. Those are a specific group of people.
Yeah. And you're talking about elite CrossFitters, like the people who have been training their entire lives, who have probably spent time doing strength bodybuilding work as well. And they have probably really amazing genetics that they could just go do some
and nutrition
all that stuff. Exactly. And I can guarantee you, they probably do accessory work outside of just the CrossFit stuff. But yeah, I think, and that's, again, this is like the biggest mistake that I made personally in my own training career was like doing these circuit training things, doing CrossFit a lot, trying to literally change my body composition, but using like a very inefficient way of doing it. And again, not that CrossFit and Orange Theory and Barry's Bootcamp, not that they don't have their place in certain things. Like if you are someone who enjoys that and that's what gets you moving, do it. But if you're trying to change your body composition, if you're trying to, you know, actually get stronger and, you know, build muscle over time, I think that we need to think about really like what's going to do that. And I think these, you know, during your rest periods, when you're like lifting heavy shit, you should not be jumping around. You should not be doing jumping jacks or jump squats or things like that for the majority of the time. You should be resting so that your body can recover from that previous heavy set and then go in and do it again. Obviously, like there are times and places for that. So for example, in our programming, in the Muscle Science Firm program, we have like at the end of the workout, there are sometimes like metabolic finishers or things where, you know, it is the whole point of that is to get your heart rate up a little bit, to add some fun to it, right? To add a little bit of like an ending. You do it at the end, right? And it's like, okay, maybe we do like an AMRAP, like as many rounds as possible or something like that with bicep curls or triceps or kind of supersets or things like that. But the goal of that is actually more so just enjoyment. It's yes, to get your heart rate up. Within that period of time, you're actually not building as much muscle as you could. You're not really getting the stimulus that we want, which is creating as much tension within that muscle tissue. So I think that it really just comes down to like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You shouldn't be lifting weights. You shouldn't be going to the gym and lifting weights if your goal is to change your body composition, you shouldn't be trying to burn as many calories as you can during that session. You shouldn't be chasing the sweat, right? You shouldn't be chasing, a high heart rate. You should be legitimately like sometimes, and we talk about this all the time, like I don't like there's most of the days when I leave the gym, I'm not sweating.
No.
Like I'm literally like completely dry. And that is, obviously you should feel some disruption in your muscles. You should feel some of that, but don't chase the sweat and don't chase kind of the, Bosu ball squats and all that fancy stuff because it just doesn't make sense. One other thing I'll say is that there are some things that might seem like sometimes I'll program things, and even for myself, where it's like a heel elevated split squat with like my rear foot elevated as well. And like that seems kind of fancy, like, oh, you're like doing all these things and I have like a hand support. Like that might seem fancy if you're kind of looking at it, but there is like a reasoning for it in terms of like what we're doing. So some of these more fancy things like different types of split squats or different types of I don't know, it's mainly split squats because there's like so many different ways to do a split squat to target different areas, whether it's your quads or your glutes. But that has a purpose behind it. And it's, maybe it looks a little fancy, but
yeah. And I mean, again, I think it goes back to what's the intention, like you said. And also for me, because I always think about things through like a functional fitness lens, you can do regular split squats and this is a progression for you, or it's a, offshoot to do something specific. My issue is when we're getting people to do these crazy sort of like ego driven, endorphin driven workouts when they don't necessarily have the training age or the strength foundation to do the basics underneath it that are going to like make it less likely that you're going to injure yourself, or that you actually have like the strength you're hoping to get through these other crazy workouts that you'll actually get through doing the foundations. Like if you can do this foundational stuff and then you're kind of upping it, making it a bit spicier for another reason, great. Like, and we're all allowed to go do sort of fun workouts that just make us feel good sometimes, but like the basic consistent approach should be doing, the foundational stuff that gives you the actual strength that you want to get stronger and build muscle and live life well. Going just really quickly, and maybe this will be the end of the podcast because we want to do another one, but the chasing the sweat thing and like being super sweaty and being super sore, I just wanted to reiterate there because I was just listening to another podcast. I shouldn't be promoting other podcasts on this one, but like, what the hell? Andrew Huberman, his podcast, he had one with Dr. Andy Galpin, both of whom, by the way, were on this podcast before the rebrand. So if you want to go back and search Muscle Science for Women, Andrew Huberman, Muscle Science for Women, Andy Galpin, they are both super smart people, really good podcasts. But Dr. Andy Galpin, he has a PhD in human bioenergetics, muscle physiology. He's like this coach. He coaches elite athletes, MMA athletes, all this stuff. He's super, super smart and incredibly like scientifically knowledged in this area. It's not just like, people who are like, I'm a trainer and so I know things. This guy's smart. And he said in this recent podcast, and it was a good reminder for me, that like muscle soreness and exhaustion is a really poor barometer of workout effectiveness. So if you're sore every single workout, that doesn't mean you're getting a good workout. It doesn't mean you're getting stronger. And in some cases, it can mean the opposite. Now, that's not to say that sometimes we don't do a workout and it was great and we're a little sore, or we're tired, or we're sweaty. These things happen. But if your main, like, again, barometer for like, did I get a good workout is, am I exhausted, sore for 4 days and sweating for hours afterwards? Not ideal. It's not great, right? There's just other better ways to determine if you're making progress. One of them is actually tracking what you're doing and seeing if there's progress. But especially for women, and especially in the context of people who are not professional athletes, who have other stressors and other things going on in their life, just killing yourself in your workout every day is probably not the best way to actually see sustainable progress.
Yeah. 100% agree with everything. And I think too, especially just on that point, you're actually going to burn out. You're going to not be able to get to where you want to be if you are continuously chasing the soreness, the sweat, the endorphins, all that jazz, right? Those are things that, the cardio, that stuff, not that it's not important at sometimes, but again, if you're a woman, you're trying to change your shape, change your body composition, the meat and potatoes is strength training, training specifically for hypertrophy, creating as much tension within that muscle tissue as possible to get to that, and progressively overloading, right? All the things we talk about in the program, all the things we lay out there. So yeah. And then one last thing I'll just say is that for me, it's kind of like, okay, that 80-20, like we talk 80-20 nutrition sometimes, right? Like having that 80%, or some people it's 90-10, whatever. Having that like 80 to 90%, whole foods, as close to nature as possible. And then the other 10 to 20% can be those more fun foods, right? For life, for most people who want to like work in like the chocolate and the protein powders and stuff like that, like that's fine. And, whatever, going out and having, I don't know, whatever you want. But that kind of, I look at that as training too, like 80 to 90% of your training, if it's for body composition changes, for muscle building, should be the things that we're talking about. But then the other 10 to 20% can be some of those finishers, some of the fun stuff that does get your heart rate up, gets you sweating, things like that. But that should not be the bulk, right? So kind of thinking about it that way is an easy way to like look at your training program. Whoever's doing it for you, you should come to Muscle Science for Women program because we'll do it for you. 80% of that should be the foundations, the stuff that really focuses in on what the goal is. And then the other 10 to 20% can be the fun little, not that the other stuff isn't fun, but the more like,
just, little different
the spicy stuff. Yeah. Different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Cool.
Beautiful. Speaking of Muscle Science for Women, in our step 1 of world domination, we actually bought the web URL, Muscle Science for Women. So now we can just tell everyone, go to musclescienceforwomen.com. And that's our landing page. And we will be adding some stuff and doing some upgrades and some fanciness for our business and our brand and the services we're offering you guys in the new year. But, oh, wow. Okay. Should we get into that next episode?
No, it's my cue to you.
We have to talk about,
my cue to you.
You can just talk about it too. You're the one taking the optimal carnivore right now.
Okay, I didn't take it yet.
ASMR. Okay, so take those pills.
What's
right
ASMR?
On. It's I don't know what it stands for. Audio something, but it's basically like a whole industry of people who like either, I don't know, just enjoy and or get off on like sounds, like people talking really interestingly into the microphone, or like eating, or like swallowing, or like crinkling paper. Like it's auditory. I don't know. People
is that like the feet thing where like people are like obsessed with feet?
I mean, I think that's just another thing people are into. I don't think they're connected in any way, but you can't really hear feet. Yeah, feet's a whole other thing. Okay, anyway, this is going off the rails. Rachel is taking some optimal carnivore right now we're talking, because they are our amazing supportive sponsor. They make grass-fed desiccated organ meat supplements that I have actually been opening up and pouring into my kid's food now because
I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, because he can't swallow a pill, and he will eat liver, honestly. It's just that sometimes I'm too lazy to make any. And so I've just been like peppering that. And that's maybe something you could do, trick your loved ones into trying some organ meat, is like, look, you pepper that onto your whatever meat stir fry that you had yesterday, into your mashed potatoes, into your whatever. You're not going to taste it. Like you're not putting, huge spoonfuls, heaping spoonfuls, like a couple pills, you open them up. It's literally whole food. It's just desiccated organs, like dried, desiccated organs. So, and then you can add some nutrition to anything that you make. So you guys should consider it.
Yeah. And I got to tell you something. So this is so interesting to me. I was refilling my, grandma thing. I do it every Sunday. Right. And I had like all my stuff laid out.
You are literally exactly like my husband. Like you are the person that I married. Like it's ridiculous. Literally.
That's why we work out so
I know. I'm like, I just keep finding him in different like formats. Like he's like in the kitchen, like meticulously putting his pills in a thing. I'm just like opening the fridge, and, like throwing pills into my mouth. Like whatever. Okay. Continue.
You're my Alex. I'm your Alex.
Yes.
So anyway, so I had things lined up. Lilo was like laying next to me as she does. And I'm, filling up, opening the containers, filling up. I open the optimal carnivore, which is the one so what I do is I go every other day. So one day I'll do, the organ complex. And then the next day I'll do the brain. So I'll like go, swap them. So I open the organ complex one and she pops up, like she's like literally sleeping. She pops up and she's like up on me, like pawing at me. I'm like, what are you doing? And she like, not that they have a really distinct smell, right? Like I don't smell it when I open them, but I like, obviously dogs have a super sensitive smell. And she's like up, like trying to get them. And I'm like, oh, you're a freaking like dog and you are supposed to be eating nose to tail and you're smelling these organs and you want some because that's that's you, that like inherently like that's what you need, dogs know. And I'm like, oh shit, like this is so interesting. So yeah, I forgot to tell you that, but
that's amazing.
It was cool.
That's a good endorsement. Cool. If Lilo endorses it, then I love that. You're like, you're a freaking dog and you know what you're doing. But it's the same with this is the same with Magnus. Like literally, I feed him. I mean, this is crazy, but like I feed him spoonfuls of cod liver and he wants it more than he wants sweet potato and applesauce and shit like that. Like he tastes it and he's like, I know, I don't know what's in this, but I want more of it. Like he crushes it. Like before we teach ourselves all this weird, complicated neurotic stuff about nutrition, when you can like look and see what like instinctively dogs and babies and other, are doing, it's like, it really brings you back to like what matters, it's interesting.
Yeah. And then the last thing too, is like when I was doing that organ meat challenge in the Flex Fam, I had like a beef heart and I was cutting it up. I don't remember if you know this. And I was like, I gave some to Lilo. And there was one day where I like was holding it up and I was videotaping it. She's never jumped higher in her life. And she like, I'm standing up here. This dog is, Lilo, everybody probably, small. She jumped up and grabbed it out of my hand. Like she has some hops, but like this was the highest I've ever seen her jump. And I was like, oh dang, like you really wanted that beef heart.
Lilo is crazy. The smartest. She is the smartest. Yeah. Okay. So if that endorsement, baby and dog endorsement has done it for you, go to their Amazon page. It's just amazon.com/optimal carnivore. And if you use our code MUSCLESCI, so muscle SCI, short for muscle science, it was too long of a code. So it's muscle sci, you will get 10% off. Go try it. And if you do, we want to hear feedback from other people too, because I get feedback from people all the time who are like eating more organ meats and trying supplementation, but we want to hear if you guys liked it, if you use it, if you think it's valuable. So give us feedback with that. We are going to peace out and we'll see you next time.
Bye.